sidang senat upacara akademik dalam rangka penganugerahan Doktor Kehormatan Dr. Honoris Causa kepada Profesor Dr. Peter Agre oleh Universitas Udayana dimulai. Menyanyikan bersama lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dimohon berdiri. Doa, petugas dipersilakan.
Om Swastiastu. Bapak-bapak, ibu, hadirin sekalian yang berbahagia, mari kita hening sejenak untuk berdoa sesuai agama dan keyakinan masing-masing. Dan izinkan kami memanjatkan doa sesuai agama. Doa dimulai. Om Mahastu Namo Siti. Om Mati Siwa Paranti Rakti Namo Siti. Suya Pangkat Muasya Ambasta Namo Namah. Om Rangin Saparam Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa, di bawah pancaran sinar suci Tuhan yang cemerlang, kami mengaturkan puja dan puji syukur yang setulus-tulusnya, serta berdoa kehadapan Tuhan dalam pergaulannya sebagai Sang Yang Siwara, yang memancarkan sinar suci penerangan kehidupan, sebagai saksi agung yang maha mengetahui. Saksikan serta berkatilah segala puja dan pujian. Om Yang Tuhan yang Maha Pengasih dan Penyayang, berkat limpahan rahmat dan anugerah, kita dalam kondisi sehat walafiat bisa berkumpul bersama-sama pada hari yang berbahagia ini, Jumat 24 Maret 2017 dalam acara sidang senat upacara akademik dalam rangka penganugerahan doktor kehormatan doktor honoris causa oleh Universitas Udayana kepada Profesor Dr. Peter Agre dapat terlaksana dengan baik. Ampunilah dosa serta anugerahilah dengan kebahagiaan atas semua usaha dan karya kami. Om Dewa Satu Mengenang Masuk. Om Satu Kari Prastitan. Om Sidiras Dulu Atas Dulu Astu Suat. Om Santi Santi Santi.
Pembukaan sidang senat upacara akademik oleh rektor. Rektor dipersilakan.
Dengan memohon asuh kekeluargaan nugrah berkat dan rahmat diri saya mewasi Tuhan Yang Maha Esa. Sidang senat upacara akademik Universitas Udayana dalam rangka penganugerahan Dr. honoris causa kepada Profesor Dr. Peter Agre hari Jumat tanggal 24 Maret 2017 dinyatakan dibuka dan terbuka untuk umum.
Dimohon tetap di tempat. Hadirin dipersilakan duduk kembali. Ucapan selamat datang oleh rektor. Rektor dipersilakan.
The Governor of Bali, Chairman of Bali Province Parliament, Dr. Dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, we are very delighted to express our gratitude to the founding chairman of the International Peace Foundation, the Honorable Mr. Uwe Morawetz, who has established the Asian Events and Bridge Dialogue towards a culture of peace, taking place in Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam, whose mission is to facilitate and strengthen dialogue and communications to promote understanding and trust. On top of that, the program has taken the initiative to promote promote science, economy, and the art of the Asian communities, islands, the Philippines, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Singapore, and Indonesia. The success of the program is strongly supported by the participations of Nobel Laureates, one of them being Professor Peter Agre. Dr. Peter Agre is a professor of biological chemistry and professor of medicine at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and the director of the Johns Hopkins Malaria Research Institute and the Bloomberg School of Public Health in Baltimore. Professor Peter Agre was awarded the 2003 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his invention in isolating membrane proteins. The invention is of the great importance for the understanding of many diseases such as kidneys, the muscles, nervous systems, eyes, and the secretory glands. We, the Senate of Udayana University, have the pleasure to honor Dr. Peter Agre, who has made an important and seminal contributions to the profession of medical science, to be granted the honorary degree of Doctor Honoris Causa. We do hope that your achievements and inventions will be inspiring the words of academics in general and our professors and faculty members here at Udayana University in particular, in order to compete and follow your step to contribute to their respective areas internationally. We congratulate you and we wish you continue making very important contributions in your fields of expertise. In the name of Senate of Udayana University, Rector Udayana University, thank you.
Rektor dipersilakan kembali ke tempat. Pembacaan surat keputusan tentang penganugerahan Doktor Kehormatan Doktor Honoris Causa oleh Universitas Udayana. Wakil Rektor Bidang Perencanaan, Kerjasama dan Informasi dipersilakan.
University of Udayana awarded Dr. Honoris Causa to Dr. Peter Agre, School of Medicine, Johns Hopkins University, in his recognition and outstanding contribution in the field of biological chemistry and medicine, with all honors, rights, and his privilege thereto attain. Thank you.
Wakil Rektor silakan kembali ke tempat. Uraian Founding Chairman of the International Peace Foundation tentang the 6 Asian Bridges, Mr. Uwe Morawetz, dipersilakan.
We would like to invite the founding chairman of the International Peace Foundation to deliver a remark about the 6 Asian bridges. Mr. Uwe Morawetz, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, welcome to the 6th ASEAN event series, Bridges, Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace. Bridges is facilitated by the International Peace Foundation, a non-political and non-religious foundation, under the common patronage of 20 Nobel Peace Prize laureates based in Vienna. The events are hosted in cooperation with various local partners, including the country's major universities, and I would like to thank Udayana University been continuously held in Indonesia until this March, involving the participation of Nobel Laureate for economics, physics, chemistry, medicine, and peace. The 6th ASEAN series of bridges follows the series of over 600 bridges events which the International Peace Foundation has already hosted in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Singapore since 2003 as an independent contribution for a decade towards a decade for a culture of peace and non-violence, which was initiated and promoted by the United Nations General Assembly. Bridges has been established as an international, intercultural, and interdisciplinary platform for creative cultures of learning and continued education for all people. The International Peace Foundation has no concept for peace and no fixed solutions how to achieve peace. But we believe that the first step towards peace is dialogue, and the first step towards dialogue is respect. The International Peace Foundation does not take sides, but acts as a mediator by creating an independent platform for dialogue where people meet who normally don't meet. People from all walks of life. People who speak different languages, even if they speak the same. As politicians speak another language than artists, and business and religious leaders another one than scientists, it is seldom that they speak with each other or even work together. We live in a world where some people pretend to know the answers and solutions, how to solve problems, how to achieve peace. Though the quest for peace lies in the art to pose the right questions. The International Peace Foundation believes that the interconnected problems of our world today cannot be solved only by politicians, only by business, only by scientists or by religion alone, but by working together. In the Bridges series, people from all walks of life meet in multidisciplinary programs to find creative solutions to solve problems and to achieve peace. Peace within ourselves, within our families, within social structures, people with nature and the environment, peace between nations, cultures, and religions. Peace is a process. Dialogue is a process. It is nothing which can be achieved instantly. It needs time. This is why Bridges is not organized as a single conference, but as a series of events during the period of 3 months in which Nobel Laureates have built bridges with leaders in all parts of society and with the general public. Peace is not something which can be left to the elite of a few, but which needs the participation of everyone. Only if many ways cross and people walking these ways meet, can international understanding be achieved and problems commonly solved. If we listen to and learn from each other, we may discover that there is not only one way to achieve peace, but that there are many ways, and certainly ways we have never thought of to go. It is my pleasure to invite you today to listen to and share your views with Dr. Peter Agre, a Nobel Laureate for Chemistry who has agreed to come to Indonesia to help build bridges. We all look forward to his keynote speech and to his important contribution to peace. Welcome, Dr. Peter and Mary Agre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uwe Morawetz.
Kuliah umum oleh Profesor Dr. Peter Agre dengan judul Opening Door Worldwide Through Medical Science. Kepada yang terhormat Wakil Dekan Bidang Akademik Fakultas Kedokteran Profesor Dr. Iputu Gede Adianto MPes dimohon menjadi moderator.
General lecture by Professor Dr. Peter Agre with the title Opening Doors Worldwide Through Medical Science. To lead the session, I would like to invite the Vice Dean of Faculty of Medicine, Udayana University as the moderator.
Thank you for the Master of Ceremony. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Om Swastiastu. It's a great honor for us, Dr. Desa and me, to guide this general lecture for the inauguration of honorary doctoral degree. But before the presentation, I would like to introduce Dr. Peter Agre, and hopefully everyone would know more about Peter Agre and can start in the future. As mentioned earlier by the rector, Professor Dr. Peter Agre is a professor of biological chemistry and professor of medicine at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, as well as the director of the Johns Hopkins Malaria Research Institute at the Nobel School of Public Health in Baltimore, who was awarded the 2003 Nobel Prize for Chemistry for the studies he began in the late 1980s concerning channel in cell membranes. For his work on aquaporins is one channel in the cell membrane, Dr. Agre shared the Nobel Prize with Professor Roger McGinnon of Rockefeller University, and he was subsequently awarded Johns Hopkins Malaria Research Institute Fellow Grant to extend his studies of aquaporin to malaria, addressing the question of whether or not aquaporins could be exploited as a means of treating or preventing of the disease. He oversees 20 faculty research groups as well as field activities in Zimbabwe and Zambia, Africa. Dr. Agre received his BA in chemistry from Augsburg College in 1970 and his medical doctor from Johns Hopkins University in 1974, following an internal medicine residency at Case Western Reserve University Hospital of Cleveland and a hematology-oncology fellowship at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Dr. Agre returned to Johns Hopkins as a postdoctoral fellow in cell biology. He joined the faculty in 1984 and has spent most of his professional life at Hopkins School of Medicine, leaving in 2005 to become Vice Chancellor for Science and Technology at Duke University Medical Center in North Carolina, where he guided the development of Duke biomedical research. His return to Hopkins and Johns Hopkins Malaria Research Institute in 2008 has given Dr. Agre the opportunity to concentrate on an area in which he has always been interested, the problem of disease in the developing world. As President of the American Association for the Advance of Science, Dr. Agre has led science in the diplomacy mission to Cuba, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Iran, and Myanmar. Among his many honors are the election of the National Academy of Science in 2000, to the Institute of Medicine in 2005, for which the chair the Committee on Human Rights, to the American Academy of Art and Science in 2003, and the American Philosophical Society in 2004. He is a member of the Advisory Board of from the International Peace Foundation and has received, according to this record, 17 honorary doctorate degree from universities in Denmark, Greece, Cairo, Japan, Mexico, Norway, Poland, and the United States. Maybe now from Indonesia, from Udayana, maybe about 20 honorary degree. Ladies and gentlemen, before we hear the lecture, general lecture from Dr. Peter Agre, we would like to invite Professor Dr. Peter Agre. Would you please come to the stage? Please? Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please welcome Professor Dr. Peter Agre. Professor, we have 45 minutes for general lecture and then 45 minutes for discussion. Are you ready? Okay, time is yours. Please.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Can you hear me? It's a pleasure to be here. We've been looking forward to this for so long. Thank you for this wonderful honor, this great opportunity. Thank you also to the International Peace Foundation for organizing this visit and the other visits. I think as academics, we share so much, in spite of the fact that our universities may be so far apart. What I hope to share with you this afternoon is not a retelling of the Water Channel discovery, but something which I find even more fundamental. That is the sharing fellowship among scientists worldwide. And together we have the opportunity to open doors between countries which are otherwise not always friendly. So what I plan to show you today is actually mostly a series of photographs. The young people are all familiar with Facebook. We older people maybe not so familiar, but I think the Facebook shares the faces and the stories which I hope to tell. A little preface, let me just set some background. As American scientists, a citizen of the United States, I'm aware that we are not always viewed so favorably abroad. As you can see in this compilation, the poll taken by the Zogby firm in 2004, when citizens of 5 different Arab countries were polled for their impressions of the United States, you can see that the majority had a negative response, an unfavorable response. But when the same individuals were polled for their impression of the United States science and technology, medical science, physical science, agricultural science, all kinds of science, the impression was very different. It was very favorable. There's something about science that we share worldwide, and it's an opportunity for the United States and for the world. So I'll break my talk into 4 sections. First, talking a little bit about my science upbringing. We all came from somewhere. My family was Norwegian. At the end of the 19th century, an opportunity to have land, farm in the United States brought them to the U.S. And it was in the United States that the opportunity of education lifted the possibilities for my family. This was my father, the first member of the family to go attend university. He studied chemistry, became a chemistry professor. His hero, Linus Pauling, a chemist, was one of the first visitors to the International Peace Foundation trips for the Bridge of Dialogues. A great chemist discovered that he first predicted the role of a helix in biology, which we now know, of course, the alpha helix of proteins, the double helix of DNA. He also used every opportunity when he was invited for science lectures to give a second lecture on peace. And what he focused on was the need for the ending of thermonuclear weapons testing in the environment. 50 years ago, the United States, the Soviet Union, and China were at competition to develop more and more powerful hydrogen bombs, testing them and releasing the fog in the atmosphere. It was Dr. Pauling whose extracurricular involvement led to a worldwide recognition of the dangers of thermonuclear testing, and was able to convince the U.S. government to join the Soviets and the Chinese to ban testing of nuclear weapons in the atmosphere. This brought Dr. Pauling his second Nobel Prize, the first for chemistry and the second for peace. It set a high standard for all scientists to realize that in addition to our laboratory efforts, our teaching efforts, we need to advise the public and guide them. So when I started my scientific career, I looked like this. Now I'm an old man with a white beard. I'm not trying to frighten the students, but time moves on. So I spent the better part of the year between my undergraduate and my medical studies traveling in Asia, Japan, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, as far as Singapore, not able to go to Indonesia, then across India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Europe. And it was with the youthful energy and enthusiasm that I pursued a career in medical science, working in a laboratory. Science is about discovery. It's not simply reading books. And I worked in the laboratory of this gentleman, Pedro Agre, himself a refugee from Franco, Spain, who developed a laboratory using affinity chromatography in biological systems. Pedro was very suave and elegant. The students in the lab, well, we were much less photogenic. My wife thinks we look like a motorcycle gang. This is 50 years ago, 43 years ago, excuse me. But here are scientists from around the world working together for a common purpose. Discovery which will be translated into useful activities. And one summer we were joined in the laboratory by these two young men. Nothing special, two young bearded men smiling. But let me tell you something very special about this photograph. On the far left, Naji Sayhoun, a Palestinian, a graduate of American University of Beirut, raised to fear Israel and with an adversarial position towards Jews in the United States. On the right, Marvin Ira Siegel, son of an Orthodox rabbi from Brooklyn, New York, raised in a Zionist household, fearing Palestinians. But working together, Naji and Marvin became the best of friends for the rest of their lives. And this is something that happens in laboratories everywhere, here at Udayana University, at Johns Hopkins University, and elsewhere. Scientists become friends. The second topic I would like to touch on briefly is science as an international career. Water, the solvent of life. Without water, there's no life. And of course, water at disequilibrium can be very dangerous. And our discovery of the channels for which water is transported throughout our body won me the Nobel Prize. They also got me an opportunity to reach beyond my career as a research scientist and to develop a career in the public side of science, including science diplomacy and the opportunity to visit scientists and universities around the world. So here we were. My wife Mary, who's with me today, our 4 children, 13 years ago, they received the Nobel Prize. This was the start of a new adventure in my career. Adventure as a public person of science. Now, our work in malaria over the last decade has taken us around the world, and I'm aware that you have malaria in some parts of Indonesia. Not a heavy burden compared to what it has been, but still could be improved. But as you can see from this map, the major burdens of malaria are in the developing world, mostly sub-Saharan Africa. And it is our work in terms of the international centers of excellence in 3 locations in sub-Saharan Africa. I'll show you some photographs of the African people. Zambia, our first focus of effort, has had significant improvement. There's still a large amount of malaria in southern Zambia, but it's getting much better. And of course, as you all know, malaria affects children. It kills about 450,000 children every year. Children like these small African kids. And in addition to the victims who it kills, many who have malaria are left with lifelong scars, brain damage. This child is left with permanent blindness because of cerebral malaria. And the work, of course, involves collaboration with the people. This is a conversation with Chief Macha. This is a laboratory that we were able to build, a mosquito sphere with contributions from private philanthropy, allowing us to develop mosquitoes which will block the transmission of malaria. And here are some of our field workers in southern Zambia. Young men and women, just like the young men and women at the University of Udayana, following a passion to make the world a better place. And together, you can see over the past 15 years, the burden of malaria has declined remarkably. Not to zero, our work is not done, but we can accomplish great practical value. And of course, the presence of malaria is in its abundance in the most rural, isolated locations, where the subsistence farmers in sub-Saharan Africa are working very hard to feed their families. And it is our belief that the older people who've had malaria repeatedly are carriers. They subclinically infected with malaria and the source of the parasite when the rainy season comes. And here is a typical farm family in sub-Saharan Africa, and they work so hard using such primitive implementation. And everybody works hard. The children work hard. The older children taking care of the younger children. They're carrying the maize to market to be milled. But they know how to have fun. It's quite clear that the people of the developing world have hearts and souls, emotions, loves, fears, hopes, just like the rest of us. Their greatest treasure is their children. And I think also here in Indonesia, their greatest treasure is the young people of Indonesia. Aren't they adorable? Don't they deserve to have lives like the rest of the world? Of course they do. We're also at work in Congo, where the political instability makes our work much harder. The Congo River, separating Congo Republic from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where one of our faculty members, William Moss, lectures at the medical school in Kinshasa, where there are government buildings, but their purpose is no longer the same. The trains are no longer running. Because of the social instability, the political instability, great challenges emerge. We're working in Katanga province in eastern Congo. This is the site where Dag Hammarskjöld, Secretary General of the United Nations, died in 1961 in a plane crash. Unstable, but a place of great need. And aid in the form of a gift from the American taxpayers, miracle medicines are made available. But the challenge is to get the medicines from the stockpiles to the villages. There are no highways that are paved. We require small aircraft like this one piloted by Dan Carlson, a Swedish missionary pilot. As I said, this part of Congo is swampy, it's marshy, with a huge burden of malaria. But the village elders, the health workers, are dedicated. A little help is what they're asking for, because their children are infected with malaria. All of these children will develop malaria every year. We're also at work in Zimbabwe, the sister state to Zambia. Beautiful country, but with a political problem. The problem is the president, Robert Mugabe. The liberator of Zimbabwe, ending a period of repression, the white supremacist regime. But power is never permanent. And after 37 years of power, the instability and the political chaos has led to an erosion of the public health. How does one do a research project in a quasi-dictatorship? And the answer is, from inside the system you can do more than you ever could outside. Chumbu Munadi, our colleague, is actually Robert Mugabe's niece, a very good and wonderful person who allows us to do our work in Zimbabwe. A beautiful country, just as beautiful as Indonesia, with wonderful people, but they lead very simple lives. They rely upon the waterways for the water, for washing, for religious purposes. And they like to send their children to school. They like to have normal lives. It's really that hope which I think makes our work so important. The clinics are present, but they're not well organized. They need additional efforts in organization. And that's something I think that we can the West can provide. Because during the rainy season, the malaria burden is large, and every morning the clinics are filled with young mothers with children suffering from malaria. And this is our colleague in the blue shirt, Sungano Maragora, a Johns Hopkins faculty member, born and raised in Zimbabwe, who's returned to his home country to knock out malaria forever. I'll now turn to science and human rights just briefly, because science has an opportunity for special interventions when scientists, engineers, health professionals, and academics suffer repression around the world. Just a few examples. This committee was led by Torsten Wiesel, a Nobel Laureate, who for several years organized efforts to come out on behalf of the repressed scientists, engineers, health professionals around the world. And several examples: Saeed Ibrahim, an economics professor in Egypt, imprisoned because he dared to criticize the government, released because of the actions of the Committee on Human Rights of the National Academy of Sciences. Bulgarian nurses and a Palestinian physician were sentenced to death in Libya, charged incorrectly and unfairly with transmitting HIV virus to small children in Libya. They were innocent, and because of the actions of the committee, the release was granted. Another example, Dr. Vinayak Sen, a pediatrician in India, caring for children in the poorest parts of India, was charged with treating members of the Maoist activist group charged with treason, who were able to gain his release. Behind closed doors, the committee is very effective. And also they support activities linking Palestine and Israel, an organization led by Menachem Yari, a Jewish Israeli scientist on the left, Sari Nusevi, Palestinian from the West Bank on the right, making scholarships and research grants available. Finally, I'll talk about science and diplomacy, something very dear to my heart, something completely consistent with the mission of the International Peace Foundation. I'll talk about our visits to a number of countries. This organization was developed 9 years ago by Von Jerichian, and I'll talk about some of the countries we visited, starting with Cuba. Cuba, so close to the United States, but ideologically so far. Yet research and collaborations amongst Cuban scientists and scientists in the United States have occurred a long time ago. And by working with the Cuban Academy of Sciences, shown here their president, Sergio Pastrana in Havana, we remember the great collaborations of the past. The Yellow Fever Commission of 1900. Yellow fever was decimating Cuba. Its cause was not known. It was believed that the infection was transmitted by fomites, by filth, by swamp gases, but it was really the work of Carlos Finlay, a Cuban physiologist and scientist who recognized that mosquitoes transmitted the infection of yellow fever. Carlos Finlay, in this oil painting at the Cuban Academy, is shown in the far right, elderly gentleman in a suit. And in the far left, at the back, is Jesse Lazier, a Johns Hopkins physician, who recognized that if mosquitoes transmitted yellow fever, they should be able to recreate this, allowed himself to be bitten by yellow fever mosquitoes, develop yellow fever, confirming the transmission. Unfortunately, he died. So we like to remember Lazier and Finlay for the pioneering work. We have plaques in their memory at both Johns Hopkins Hospital and at the Cuban Academy of Sciences. But the revolution changed much between the countries of Cuba and the United States. And remembrances are still vivid in Cuba. The embargo has prevented the import of modern goods, automobiles, and this has really hamstrung Cuba. But there has been investment in colonial architecture is well preserved, elegant, but they've relied upon a tourist industry. Tourism can be very helpful here in Bali to benefit, but that's not enough. You need universities to educate people in careers. There's investment in arts, sculpture, but there's been major investment in Cuba in science. And here I am with two of the leaders of the Cuban science. But the old guard is still present in Cuba. Fidel Castro died last year, and I had the opportunity to meet with him actually 4 years ago. His son, Fidelito, is not a politician, he's a scientist like ourselves. And it was really Fidelito's invitation that got us to Cuba. In meeting with his father, El Comandante, I realized that this former dictator of Cuba had a profound respect and admiration for science and medicine. And at the end of our evening together, here we are, an aging Cuban dictator and an American grandfather. We disagree about many things, but we agree on some things, most notably that science and medicine can bring us together and lift our countries. This brought me the opportunity to lecture at the University of Havana, a lovely venue like Udayana University. And after the lecture I gave, the students stormed the podium. Their enthusiasm for science, fresh, and would change the course of their country's history. We also visited Myanmar, Burma, a part of Southeast Asia which is still relatively isolated. Now 50 years since the military regime took charge of Myanmar, but things are moving in the right direction. We were able to meet with members of the Ministry of Science and the Ministry of Health in Myanmar, Burma, for which great enthusiasm and potential collaborations emerged. The faculty at the University of Yangon, and I understand that the International Peace Foundation plans next to bring their program to Myanmar, Burma. A wonderful opportunity. And here I am with some of the Laureate scientists in Fidel. The people of Burma, the lovely people, working hard, looking for a better life. And with ancient glory and riches, they still have major challenges. And those challenges will be solved by the people, particularly the young people, their greatest treasure. The Islamic Republic of Iran, a country which still has major problems with the United States. Our governments can't agree on very much. Of course, they're a theocracy. The Supreme Ayatollah makes all the final decisions. They have an elected president at the time of our visit 3 years ago, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, a politician with great limitations. But in spite of that, behind the scenes, enlightened, university-educated Iranian scientists had a positive effect. You may not recognize this man. This is Ali Akbar Salehi, Iraqi-born, graduate of American University of Beirut, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, where he earned his doctorate. He has great friendships in the United States. 2 of his brothers live in the United States. His niece is an eye doctor at Johns Hopkins. She's my doctor. This is a very sensible person who sponsored our visit. And those of you who had an opportunity to visit Iran realize, like Indonesia, it's a beautiful country, wonderful people, and there are some barriers, but in fact these barriers are things we can agree upon. Here's my wife Mary with one of the young faculty members at the Tehran University. And the lecture I gave, similar to the lecture today, to Iranian scientists. Making friendships. Friendships that we don't always have to take so seriously. So the last photographs of Iran show 2 classmates. On the left is Ernest Moniz, the former Secretary of Energy of the United States, a graduate of MIT, and a classmate of Ali Akbar Salehi, the Foreign Minister for Iran. As they put together the nuclear agreement, something which science brought to the world, reducing the uranium enrichment in Iran, preventing them from developing nuclear weapons, bringing peace to the world. Peace is something which we want to continue. Finally, I'll talk a little bit about the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Let me see a show of hands. Who's been to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea? Raise your hand. I see 1 hand. Daniel. It's not easy to go to DPRK. It's perhaps the last place on earth. They don't have a beautiful tourist industry like Bali. They have a cruel and repressive regime, but it's a country with wonderful people, including wonderful scientists. Now, there's been very limited American visitation to North Korea. You may recognize this. This is Dennis Rodman, former basketball star, who was invited to North Korea. And it's easy to be critical of Mr. Rodman's visit to North Korea, but it was human contact. Maybe there's something good that will come from that. We think the scientific visits may have more potential for long-standing peace. North Korea has many problems. They have a negligible electrical grid. The city of Pyongyang looks much like a ghost town at night. Few people on the streets. And the notion that they are surviving because of Juche, self-reliance, is the propaganda which is broadcast widely. We all know that the DPRK can only survive because food donations from other parts of the world. The citizens are constantly reminded to work hard for the country, and also reminded that if they act out, there'll be a fearful response from the regime of the Kim family. Yet the science goes on in North Korea to a limited level, not to the vibrant level that's being pursued here at Udayana University. Kim Chek University, one of the 3 universities the International Peace Foundation had dialogues this last May. Here I am, the Vice President of the State Academy of Science in North Korea. And I've given him my necktie. This is a special necktie. This is the necktie I wore in Stockholm when I presented the Nobel lecture. And I gave it to him not as a personal gift, but to trust, for him to pass on to the first scientist from North Korea to win a Nobel Prize. I wish I had 2 of those neckties. I'd give it to you here at Udayana University for your first scientist to win a Nobel Prize. And it will happen. It might be one of the young people here today. I hope so. We will all celebrate. So in spite of the political repression, North Korea's science goes on. Scientists are doing biotechnology, crops development, and they have a special university amongst their universities, the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology, which is an English language university. A gift from a wealthy Korean-born American businessman who's given his fortune to foster a university with the hope that the North Koreans and the West would come closer together through science. So the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology is a pretty formal institution. Unlike students elsewhere, they march to class, they wear suits on all occasions. We don't think of them as a party school. They listen attentively to lectures, and they only laugh when they're given permission. Everything is when they're given permission, because there's no freedom. So when I lectured at Pyongyang, I gave them my lecture with my best joke, and nobody responded. So I told them, that was a joke, that was funny, and then they all laughed. Because the students are constantly being watched. These 2 students being interviewed by the North Korean press, as you can see in the background, are being observed. Intelligence agents. But in spite of this, science goes on. My last photograph shown here, I am with Dr. Ri Gun Hong, the director of the International Offices of the State Academy of Sciences of North Korea. Now, the children in North Korea are brainwashed into assuming that all Westerners are evil and aggressive. Dr. Hong and I spent a week together, and the last morning, having breakfast at the hotel in Pyongyang, he shared with me a story. I didn't know quite how to respond. He said, Peter, my 6-year-old grandson, when he learned that I would be at a hotel with Americans for a week, my 6-year-old grandson told me I should bring the rifle. Grandfather, bring the rifle. Don't trust the Americans. He laughed. I didn't know quite how to respond. But I had an unopened carton of granola bars in my travel valise, which I gave to Dr. Hong. I said, give these to your grandson. Thought nothing more of it. 2 years later, I'm a little ahead of my story here. 2 years later, we had a follow-up meeting where the leadership of the State Academy of Science of North Korea came to the United States, and we met at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia. And the meeting began with a formal sit-down. The North Korean leadership on one side of the table, the American leadership on the other side of the table. I was the center of the American, Dr. Hong, the center of the North Korean. And he began with a litany of complaints, formal complaints, rehearsed probably written by his government. Very serious, very stern, indicating that this collaboration is not likely to be positive. And it was my chance to respond. And not being a trained diplomat, I simply responded with the first thing that came to mind. I said, Dr. Hong, how is your grandson? And at this point, his stern demeanor relaxed. He smiled. He said, well, he's fine, thank you. And then I followed, saying, Dr. Hong, did he tell you to bring the rifle to Atlanta, Georgia? And he started laughing. He said, of course not. But my grandson did tell me to bring back a carton of granola bars. And so perhaps this is the first step of science diplomacy, and the major essence, friendships of science, through science, with scientists, countries around the world, where our shared goals, through our scientific talents, is to make the world a better place for our children and our grandchildren. So in closing, I'd like to share some wisdom from China. Those of you who may speak Mandarin realize that the character in Chinese for crisis is two characters. Wei, time of danger. Ji, time of opportunity. So the dangers in the world are many. The global climate change, the emergence of drug resistance, tuberculosis, pestilences, and the chances of science bring opportunities for all of us to put in our best efforts to address these challenges and make the world a better place. So with that, let me challenge the young students here at Udayana University. Work hard. Being a scientist is not always easy. The rewards are not always financial, but you'll make the world a better place. Your families, your country, the world is counting on you. And I'm challenging you as well. So with that, let me thank you from the bottom of my heart for the honor of being a member of your scientific community by accepting this Doctor of Medicine honoris causa. Thank you so much.